Welcome to our Week 3 discussion for IST 240. You have the day off today because of the Martin Luther King holiday, but I wanted to convey some information you're going to need for Project 2 and some of the other assignments we have this week. So let's begin. The main topic this week is conditional selection. Now this is something you did in your prior course, whether it be IST 140 or CompSci 121. The idea with conditional selection is that we have code constructs which allow you to determine which path, so to speak, to follow, based on the value of a true or false expression, something we often call a condition. If you look on the right, you see a flowchart. This is a visual depiction of an algorithm, and you can draw a parallel between an algorithm and your program. An algorithm is nothing more than a series of steps designed to solve a problem. What we do with flowcharts is make a visual representation of that, and often we use that to translate into the actual code that we want to write. In this flowchart, you see a diamond, which says temp less than 32, followed by a question mark. The diamond represents a decision to be made. In computer programming, when we talk about decisions to be made, we're talking about two-way selection. There are actually two outcomes from that decision. Normally, they're called true and false, or equivalently, they can be called yes and no. That's why you see two lines coming out of this diamond, one labeled yes, one labeled no. These are the two possible outcomes of asking the question, is temp less than 32? It is or it isn't. Now, based on the result, you follow a different pathway, and you perform a different next step. For example, if the temperature is indeed less than 32, you cover the tomatoes. If the temperature is not less than 32, you uncover the tomatoes. Now, each of them lead to a common end, as we can see by following the arrows to its logical conclusion. So what are the conditional selection constructs in C++ and Java? How do we take something like this flowchart and translate it into code? The good news is you've already used these constructs. The same constructs are used in C++ and Java to make decisions, specifically to make true or false decisions, or as we call them, conditions. So let's take a look. The most basic form of conditional selection in C++ and Java is the if statement, and you dealt with these in your prior course. What you see here is kind of a template, if you will, for the use of an if statement. The most basic form of an if statement is the top portion. The else portion is actually optional, but is often used. The condition is enclosed in parentheses and follows the word if. This is again a true or false expression, something like x less than y, or temp less than 32, or a equal to b, things like that. Now, depending on the value of that condition, whether it's true or false, something different will happen. If the condition is true, the first set of statements will occur. One or more statements to execute if the value of the condition is true. If the condition is false, that's where the else comes into play. If the condition is false, the statements within the else block will be executed instead. This is a proverbial fork in the road. Based on the value of the condition, you will only follow one of the pathways from that fork. Now, many of the ways in which we form conditions you have seen before, both in your prior course and probably in mathematics in some way. Things like greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to. These are what we call relational operators. They're the same in C++ and Java. Ultimately, they allow you to form what's called Boolean expressions with two operands. For example, x less than y is a Boolean expression, or what we often call a condition. It has a true or false value, and it has two operands, x and y. Another form of conditional selection in both C++ and Java is the cascading if statement. Some people will call this the if-else-if statement. And you can see the template here for it. It's probably something similar to what you've seen, or identical really, to what you'd seen in a prior course. You have any number of else-if clauses following an if clause, and the else clause at the very end is again optional. The purpose of a cascading if is to allow you to test multiple conditions in series. The last form of conditional selection we want to mention is, again, something you find in C++ and Java. The switch statement has a more limited role, but it has, in some cases, a very important role. With a switch statement, we have a controlling expression. This is not necessarily a true or false expression. It's something that has what's called an ordinal value. In C++ and Java, that means it's either an integer of some sort, like a long or a short or an int, a character, which is a single ASCII character, or a Boolean value, true or false. The switch statement has within it some number of cases, and the idea is the program will try and match the controlling expression value with the specific case values. When it finds a match, it will execute the code within that case. The break statement, which you should find in most, if not all cases, kicks you out of the switch when you're done. Instead of an else, we have a default case within the switch, which again is optional. So this week you will do Homework Project 2. Homework Project 2 is about good health. It's another sustainability topic that we're just going to explore a little bit. This project is due before the next class period. You're going to turn in one Java file. So follow the directions. Make sure you follow the Java coding guidelines on Canvas. This is worth 10% of the project grade. And be sure to see the grading rubric, which is exactly the same as it was last week. But it's always a good idea to check things out and make sure that you're up on what is being assessed. Another assignment you have this week is your reflective writing exercise. With each project, you're going to be writing a small essay. The idea with this essay is allow you to reflect on your learning and the things you learned about. Your first one is this week. Keep in mind that the turnaround for these assignments is relatively short. We want to try and have you reflect in the immediate time after the assignment's been submitted. So see the assignment on Canvas and complete it before 6 p.m. this Wednesday. So you have a 48-hour turnaround from the normal class time. Read the directions and read the rubric. So one thing we do want to mention here is, what is reflective writing? Now if you go into the assignment, it will go through a lot of this material, but we just want to hit upon some key points. When we talk about reflection, what we're really talking about is thoughtfully considering or meditating on a topic. Thinking deeply about a topic so that you can assess what you learned, how you learned it, and perhaps some things you may want to change in the future. The idea with reflective writing is to not only perform that reflection, but to integrate theoretical knowledge along with your own personal experience and maybe prior knowledge in a written form. Now for us, our goals are twofold. Given that you're learning about sustainability material, we want you to critically assess how it fits in a wider context, how the material you learned about, like for example wind power, fits in a wider context. Now this includes your own personal day-to-day lives, your community, and the larger world. We also want you to develop a greater awareness of how you learn and perform best, and the ways in which you can improve your own work. Through the reflection process, thinking about what you've done and how you've done it, you can assess what worked, what didn't, and what you can do differently next time. So some reminders. Your reflective writing assignment is due before 6 p.m. Wednesday. This is your first one, so I expect to be a few bumps in the road, but don't forget about it. The readings and preparatory exercises are due by midnight on Sunday. We'll follow the same pattern each week. The Homework Project 2, remember, is due before the next class period, so before 6 p.m. Monday. Don't forget about that. Make sure you ask any questions you may have along the way. I'll be happy to answer them. I do have office hours on Wednesday, and I'm here all day, most of the day Wednesday, so if you need to work out a different time, just contact me at least 24 hours in advance so we can see what will work. Have a great week, and let me know if you have any questions or problems.